Good evening, Danvers. Welcome to the January 23rd, 2020 Topics of the Town News. I have today with me John Toomey as my co-host and Matthew Duggan as the third co-host, and I am Mark Zuberek, if anybody doesn't know. So what we want to do is transparency and independent reporting is our motto. The Topics of the Town News reporting is by Danvers reporters for Danvers residents. We always report only the truth, sometimes with our opinion included, because that's what we're about. News story number one is we had a selectmen's meeting on January 21st, on Tuesday, and I did not get anything very important out of the meeting. Matthew, do you have anything that you want to talk about?
No, I wasn't able to attend. I got stuck at work, but I did watch a little bit of it on tape. I think it was just kind of a
lot of technical stuff in regard to permits and licenses.
Yeah.
And the only thing that I gathered out of it was reported in the Danvers Herald and the Salem News, is that we're no longer going to celebrate Columbus Day. We're going to be politically correct, and the selectmen fell right into that Indigenous
People's Day.
So I guess it's all the Indians that we have in New England. We have quite a few different tribes that roamed this area at the time when Columbus arrived. I have personal experience with Passamaquoddies up in Maine. I don't know, there's a tribe that was here in Salem when Danvers was part of Salem, and there's some discussion in regard to recognizing some of the Indian tribes that were working this area. And what we'll do is in the future, in a future show, we'll go and get into that situation and discover what Indian tribes were working in Danvers, Salem, Peabody, in the whole area. So
I think that would be very interesting. It's something that there's very little knowledge kicking out there in the public.
We've talked about it, and we need to devote some time into a historical exploration of our roots and tribes that worked in the New England area, because New England to the Indians was all the way up to Maine, into New York State, Canada. So what we'll do is we'll start a story on that, and maybe we'll do that in segments at our future shows.
Yeah. So I just wanted to add that the selectmen didn't decide that we weren't going to celebrate Columbus Day. They were just showing support for some legislation at the State House that,
Well, the selectmen are so flexible to the wishes and whims of our legislature that, why do we have the selectmen in town? Why do we have the legislature in the governor's office? That's where they all belong. The governor wanted to do this, and this is something that I guess certain people do want.
Well, I think the town's inclusion committee brought that forward to the selectmen, and that's why it was on the agenda.
Well, good for them, and I hope that the selectmen really consider this as a factor. So, thank you for that. Now, what I have is John has a clip for the bridge and the water pipe break that happened, and what we'll do is we'll show a quick clip, but I think what we need to first is identify John's little clip with a leak shuts down water main.
We're talking about roughly half of the water that Danvers uses. Apparently, there's a 16-inch water main that goes under the Ipswich River Bridge out on 114 at the Danvers Middleton line. And it was discovered, a small leak was discovered in there, so they immediately started to prepare for repairs. There's a Baxton water well. Apparently there are 2 water wells that we have in case of. So we do have a system that covers us in case of breaks. As I say, apparently this is half of the water that Danvers uses is coming through this. And fortunately, they've set it up so that they're going to have a shutdown on this particular pipe, and they'll bring in the water from the Baxton water well, and that will supply it. We're talking about half of the water Danvers uses. That's quite a bit. You want to run that?
There he goes, right there.
There's the bridge.
Where is that bridge, John?
It's 114, right at the Danvers Middleton line.
Right.
Matter of fact, there's a Danvers sign right there. Says the town of Danvers and so forth. As you can see underneath, this is on one side. There's quite a bit of water. There's a swamp there, or I don't know if it's a swamp or a lake or a river.
That's the Ipswich River, right?
Yeah.
And this is the parking lot out there. As you can see, they're starting to put some equipment in there to work on it. As you can see, underneath there, they got a wooden platform where they're going to work on the pipe and so forth. You can see the Danvers sign. You can just see it there. There's the pump house and so forth that they
That's
use.
where the pump is.
Yeah,
right there.
the well, yeah.
The well, right.
Those are
And,
carbon filters. I think they're the silver tube.
Right. No, that is a very significant amount of water, but that has been leaking since when? November?
They don't really know, I don't think.
Because water went into the waterway.
The fish were very happy.
It's underneath the bridge.
Right.
So and it's a small leak. Nobody really, you couldn't see it unless there happened to be a kayaker going under the bridge who spotted the leak.
Oh, I see. Well, thank you, kayak.
And as you can see, the Danvers sign there, that's where
Right.
the Danvers line is. And
But that's a significant contribution to our water supply, and that's been leaking for a while. Now we're going to be using the wells that are along 114.
well, I think that's a good indication of obviously they're ready for anything.
Right.
If there's the side where they're going to work on but obviously they have 2 wells, and one of them that they're going to use can supply enough water to replace that they're missing here.
There are 2.
Be on the lookout for rusty water at that house when
Right.
you turn on the faucet. It shouldn't be any problem. You can just flush out the various units just by turning the water on and off and so forth. If you do have any problems, call the water treatment plant manager. Jason McCarthy, 978-774-5054. 978-774-5054.
Jason was the one that took us around the water treatment plant
Yes.
in Middleton, and that turned out to be a very interesting exercise in understanding how our water is treated. So that they're doing a great job. So let's give them support, and this thing is going to be fixed in the near future, right?
Right. They're talking about just a few weeks.
Right.
5 or 6 weeks. A lot depends upon what the weather is. I mean, you can have constant snowstorms or blizzards or something. You can't do any work out there. But fortunately, you've got the water being replaced by the well water, so you've covered.
The well water is treated right on the spot and put into the system. And there are 2 mains that go out from Middleton. One goes to Folly Hill, and the other one goes to the Danvers State Hospital, where it was.
Yeah.
And there's a big tank that surges the water down under pressure to the residents in one end of town. Folly Hill does the other end of town. So those are very significant locations for our water supply. Well, thank you, John. That was great, because that's been an issue that's been floating around and nobody really knew what was going on. The other item that I like to bring in from our previous shows is we have had a very significant uproar from our residents in regards to their real estate taxes. Now, we ran the story about the town selectmen voting for increase of the real estate rate by 12.5%, and then they went down to 9.2%. Now they're at 3.2%. But one thing that they forgot to consider in this factor is the assessments. It appears that the assessments are extremely high this year, especially on duplexes and multifamily properties. And it also should apply to the businesses, because businesses are assessed and evaluated and taxed at a different rate because their value is calculated by a very complex and also a negotiated process, which is totally unfair to the residents, because the residents can't write off the expenses associated with their properties. The selectmen increasing residential real estate taxes by decreasing the classification on the commercial and industrial is a maximum allowable shifting of the tax burden from the residential to the business and industrial, commercial and industrial. But the problem is that the calculation of the assessment and the value of the properties is totally different. So if you feel you have been overassessed and overtaxed, you have an opportunity in the month of January through February 3rd this year to file for an abatement. An abatement will lead you to discover what properties, similar properties, have been assessed at, because the tax rate hasn't changed. The selectmen left the tax rate high and they increased it by 3.4%. But now the assessments are the issue, because for some reason the assessor's office has decided to raise the assessments on primarily on multifamilies and I believe on some condos. So go to the assessor's office, claim your over taxation, and file for an abatement.
Well, this is what really bothers me, is that as far as I can see, the average person in this town who's paid taxes doesn't say anything, doesn't do anything. Most people I talk to are unhappy with it. They say it's too high, but they don't say anything. They don't talk to the selectmen. They don't moan and groan to anybody, and they should. They should get out there and do something.
The selectmen at this stage, all they can do is look forward for next year's rise in tax revenue.
Well, we've had, what, 11 straight years of tax raises?
Yes.
Every year for the past 11 years, the tax rate has gone up.
And over the 2.5% that we are legally obligated to pay because of the 2.5% increase that has been legally allowed. But they're abusing that process because they claim that by classification they wanted to make everybody go up 3.5%.
Well, you say abusing. I say they're just taking advantage of the average citizen not saying anything.
There you go. That's all we're going to say, because time is running out, so you have to go and chase that nickel that's being taken away from you. I have one thing that I'd like to just explain here is Peabody Institute Library. It's an organization that has provided access for the public in many different ways. They do the book, they do the room rentals and availability for community gatherings. And I'd like to thank Alex Lent for being so cooperative, because what we'll have is tonight, right after the show at 6:30, we'll be reconvening at the standing room, which is on the first floor, for a forum that we have invited Danvers residents to, a Danvers Concerned Resident Forum. The forum will be held tonight, January 23rd, at the Danvers Peabody Institute Library in the standing room, main floor entrance. The meeting is scheduled from 6:30 to 8:30. We'll be there as long as the doors are not closed. They close up at 9 o'clock. The forum will provide the residents of the town of Danvers and town meeting members an opportunity to discuss the issues and permit you to ask any questions related to our responsibilities and authority as elected town residents. And I'm seriously speaking to the town meeting members. And Matthew, you are a town meeting member. I'm a town meeting member. John has been in the past. And we are all concerned in regard to be able to freely discuss the issues that are being presented to us and become informed town meeting members.
That's the big thing, is to get out and discuss what's going on.
And get everybody else's input into it so that you understand where everybody's coming from. Because at town meeting, there's 149 people that are voting, and I don't think half of them know what it's all about. It's a rubber stamp, and I've seen that for 30 years now.
The last town meeting, they ran the budget through, what, $121 million or something in 15 minutes?
Correct.
I mean, come on.
So, but I just want to continue this opportunity for our viewers. And we have contacted viewers, we have advertised this opportunity, and I hope we can see some more people there this evening. Matthew.
Yes, sir.
You are a town meeting member.
I'm an enthusiastic town meeting member.
Enthusiastic, that's a good point. Now, what are the big issues that the town meeting members are talking about?
Well, what they should be talking about is this new zoning initiative for Maple Street downtown and the High Street quarters to kind of allow residential in addition to what's there today, which is commercial and an industrial. So the town planning department or land use has spent a number of years on this initiative, and so we still have people in the 11th hour that are unclear on what this actually means.
And why are they unclear? What do you think?
Well, maybe they're not self-motivated.
Well,
I mean, the town has put together several dozen workshops and forums to discuss this with residents, and then people, especially the residents that are directly impacted by this, people that live along that High Street corridor or live in the Back Bay.
Okay, thank you.
So I think I'm concerned that the town meeting members really haven't flushed out, because it has, excuse me, recently been in the last 6 months or so. We talked about 40R last time, and that's now off the table. And so this initiative has kind of been a moving target in the past year or so, where it hasn't been clearly defined about what it is town meeting will actually be voting on. So,
and that's exactly why I think we need to have people come up and discuss their concerns, bring those up. We don't have all the answers. I've invited, the planning department. I invited everyone that's available, that's willing to come. And I would appreciate if they would come, because there are questions, even myself. and I've read the whole book, and it's 196 pages.
Yep.
And that is something that we need to really firm up, because right now it is fluid. You're right.
Yeah.
And what they're actually doing, and this is, we're going to get into that a little bit, but what they're doing is they're breaking downtown, which is that much of the land in Danvers, because I have a full map of Danvers, and Danvers Square is probably 1/100th of the total land area.
Yeah, but when you take what they're proposing,
Yeah.
because of the multi-story, you're basically building more units in that small area than you could build in half the towns, for crying out loud.
That's right. And the thing is that we need to be very careful of what we allow this thing to go, or how far we allow it to go. As town meeting members, we're responsible for making sure that that happens, because every time you turn around, oh, the town meeting voted for it. Everybody blames the town meeting for everything that happens. The budget goes up, they blame the town meeting. Selectmen don't take any responsibility. The planning department is a appointed department by the town manager. It's not an elected body. The zoning board of appeals is a appointed body, but it's appointed by an elected authority, the selectmen. So they are more representative of what the selectmen want, and supposedly what the selectmen want is what everybody else wants in town, because they've voted for the selectmen to be in their office for 12 and 15 years. So I guess that's what it's about. So I go ahead.
Yeah, excuse me, I just want to make 2 points. So if we just don't pass this zoning initiative
Yeah.
and just allow business as usual, so the developers, if you look at what's occurred over the past few years on Cherry Street specifically, and 44 Maple also, those are in the C1 and 1A zones and do not allow residential. So through the variances and special permits from the ZBA, these developers they'll typically purchase a property for maybe $500,000 and then exceed what's allowed by right in terms of density. So it may have been 2 or 3 residentials. Now you'll see, for example, next to Townsend Oil, there's 6 units, and these are selling for $500,000 to $600,000 a piece. So you can see the amount of profit that can be extracted from this type of project. So those will continue to happen.
But you can also see the increase in tax rate that the town is going to collect from this property.
And so that's kind of a devil in the detail, because as we build these expensive properties and market them, our threshold for 40B gets closer and closer to 10%. And then if we fall below that for the 2020 census, now properties like 75 High Street behind McDonald's, behind Jimmy's Roast Beef, that huge parcel back there could be a 40B project with 100 or 200 units. So when you drop below 10%, the zoning standards, they no longer need to be adhered to by developers. And we've seen those projects out on Route 1, like the Swing Away. So,
Well, the thing, Matthew, is that we are using the 40B and the 10% minimum affordable housing stock as a weapon. And that is not a true statement, because yes, they can come in and do their 40B, but if the town approaches, or the developers approach the town and the town works with the developer, they can come up with something significantly better than a straight old, jam whatever you can into that piece of property, because developers don't want to deal with town officials, because they're a pain in the neck. What we're doing right now in downtown, we have created 4 new districts, which are really subzones of the existing zones, and we're allowing the existing to remain. But by creating these 4 zones, we are over-regulating the development in the area of downtown. I've spoken to people that say, what the heck are we doing? What do we want to, regulate every single step a developer or landowner has to go through, all kinds of hoops to get anything built?
Yep.
Let's be realistic. This greed about affordable housing and the $35,000 per unit that they want to extract out of the developers is going to stop development altogether. So we need to be balanced. So,
Well, do we really want development downtown?
do we?
Then the possible size of the development downtown that they're proposing is, to me anyway, a question mark. It could be big. Is that what Danvers wants?
I don't even know if it's really going to be big or non-existent. Because one of the things that I found, and I'm really interested in exploring, is I went through the zoning books that we have, the zoning amendments, and there's one this thick for the whole town since 1987, and the new one, which is section 18 or whatever. No, 18,
just
the old 18, is the same thickness as the one for the whole town. So the thing is, are we, and this is in the introduction of the zoning discussion, are we preventing overcrowding of land? Are we preventing undue concentration of population? Are we providing for adequate light and air?
Well, see, to me anyway, this zoning opens the door to overpopulation.
Absolutely. The issue with these 4 zones that the planning department has created, I don't know whether the planning board is really on board with this whole thing. They have created these zones to control personally of what's being built there. If you look at the page where it says permitted or not permitted, there's an awful lot, like 80% of the buildings that can be built in there are by special permit approval. What is happening is that the designation or the permission to build a certain type building in these 4 areas is subject to a decision of a planning department and maybe the planning board. Is that what we want? We want all that authority and the responsibility to be placed into the planning board?
That's kind of the way it is today, I think.
No,
with
it's
the
not.
ZBA.
No, it's not.
You can regularly bypass the zoning bylaws that town meeting enacted. You go to the ZBA and you request, you say you have a hardship and you're requesting relief. And that's how these projects on Cherry Street got built.
And that's by the permission of ZBA.
Yeah.
Well, see, my impression of all of this is that the selectmen and the town officials and so forth that are pushing this have been told by the state that what's going to happen is development, development, and development. Supposedly, Boston is losing, if you want to call it that, or people are deciding to leave Boston and they're going into the suburbs.
The middle classes.
And, well, not only that, but the upper class too. It all depends on which view you hear from. But if this is what's going on, then they're basically taking what they're being told, looking at the future, and saying, hey, we open the door and this is what we can do. And this is what's going to happen. And we make money. So, boom, they've gone
Everybody
ahead
makes
and done
money
it.
then, right? See, the problem with our downtown, and you and I have been filming downtown and complaining about how it is in disrepair in some areas, and it needs a renovation, a rejuvenation of the downtown. What is it?
An infusion.
Infusion of some energy into the downtown. Absolutely right. The planning department is correct. The thing is that we can't just open up the gates and let anybody do anything they want, but also reserve the right for permitting certain things in these 4 areas to the planning board. How the heck can we do that? They're not elected.
You're talking about site plan review, that type of thing?
Yeah. So, but we'll continue this at 6:30 at the library, so everybody's welcome. The next story is going to be very quick, and I will summarize it very quickly because I've attended the Municipal Light Board meetings for the last, well, they even complained about it when I was there this week on Tuesday, that I've been there for 3 years in a row, every month. And I do televise the meetings and the consequences of those meetings. And the biggest consequences this time is that, yes, the Municipal Light Board gives their rubber stamp to the town manager for spending, over the last 3 years, almost $25 million of receipts or money that has been paid to the electric company for projects that don't really relate to the electric company. Road intersections, water meter loans, retirement. Now they're up to $9.1 million that they have dedicated towards the retirement fund.
Yeah, but just for electric employees.
Oh, you know what? That is such a joke. Yes, that's what they say. But it goes into the Danvers retirement fund. Why do you think Danvers got the AAA rating for the bonds? Because they have paid off a lot of the money into the retirement fund, which was really due back to the residents who use electricity. Now, all of a sudden, after they announced that they have another $19 million left in cash available funds, on Tuesday, they announced that they're going to increase the fuel adjustment cost, which is the second piece of your bill, 9.4 cents for kilowatt, and then another 4.5. They're increasing that 4.5 by 20% to 6 some percent, which means it's a 20% increase in your electric rate.
So how is that justified, that fuel surcharge?
Well, even some of the Municipal Light Board because there's only 2 left.
Maybe that's part of the problem.
And no, the problem is that the Municipal Light Board is an appointed position by the town manager, and the town manager is in charge of the electric company.
So is the DPW sign off on these surcharges?
DPW is active as the designator to run the electric company by the town manager, and has been designated to David Lane, who is the Director of Public Works. So I've been saying for years that there's a conflict in there, and somehow nobody wants to listen. As you know, that the DPU, Department of Public Utilities, Massachusetts, is investigating the town on that matter of spending that money. But I just wanted to bring everybody up to date. We have a 20% increase in fuel adjustment costs that you'll be paying starting February 1.
Oh, something to look forward to.
Well, they just increased the water by 15%. Why not electric 20% if we allow them? But the
Nobody's
thing is,
complaining.
nobody shows up at the meetings. So, quick one, Elliott and Liberty Street, traffic signals. Selectmen were asked to act on the resolution of that issue because there's a left-hand turn that cannot be made without being run over by traffic from Beverly.
So you're talking about turning
Left
from 62
onto Liberty.
east, going
Yeah.
Liberty Street north.
Right.
I think there's very few people that actually make that turn.
There's 120 families living in that neighborhood.
So what do they do today if they don't make that turn?
They take a shot at being hit by the traffic coming from Beverly on 62. What else?
If you go through there often enough, you see it quite often. I mean,
What, people turning?
a lot of people turning, yes. And that street is backed up with traffic.
Right.
There's just too
What?
much traffic
Day
on
and
the whole
night.
thing.
Westbound on 62?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I'll agree with that.
Well,
And
you
there's
experienced that.
no opportunity really for them to cut across. There's no arrow or delay in the lights.
No.
That's what was being asked by the board, to the Board of Selectmen to solve this safety issue. And the selectmen just basically ignored the whole situation. I don't know what anything has happened.
Well-
I have not talked to Peter Kushnurik, but he's the one that brought it up to the board. And I don't see any resolution.
yeah,
Well, I think it was transferred to the Traffic Advisory Committee.
That's one of those. You go this way, I go this
Well,
way. You find somebody.
Peter was there and made a presentation, and I think
a good example of how a light like that can work. If you go down Sylvan Street and you come to the lights that go into the Liberty Tree Mall, I mean, they have a fantastic amount of traffic there too, but they do have the little arrow.
oh, I know.
And
But
the arrow, when you're coming down Sylvan Street, you keep to the right. That lets you go further down Sylvan Street into Peabody. You keep to the left, and that gets you to the light that would allow you to go into the Liberty Tree
Yeah.
Mall, and it does have the little arrow.
Yeah.
But very noticeable. That arrow only lasts 4 cars.
Seconds, right.
I've checked that a couple of times
Have you?
now. But it works.
Yeah,
Traffic is not held up there because of people wanting to turn.
yeah, but
and
that's a
so forth.
dedicated left-hand turn lane. That's not what is on 62. You have 2 through lanes that funnel down east of
Yes,
Liberty.
but you have to make up for the residents in that area.
Oh, I know. So you're saying dedicated left turn lane there,
Yes.
but with only 1 through lane?
No. Just have the light. The light will only flash, and
So
I
you're
say it'll do the same thing they do on Sylvan Street. Just allow 4 cars to go through at a time, and it'll work.
Right.
So the problem is if you're in that left turn lane, or it's not a left turn lane, but if you're in that left lane and you're not the first one at the light, say you're 4 or 5 cars back, by the time you do get to the light, that delay is already gone.
That delay is for you only, not for traffic in general. That's the thing that everybody seems to forget, is that it's only a very short time. There would be very few cars, so it doesn't hold up traffic. It doesn't jam
You
it
got to
up.
have 2 through lanes right there because otherwise traffic would back right down to Conant.
There isn't.
Well, maybe that's where it should back up to.
Yeah.
Because the residents in that area on Liberty Street deserve to have access, safe crossing of the traffic that's coming from Beverly. And the traffic in both directions, in many cases, is through traffic. It's not
Oh, yeah.
local traffic.
No, it's all through traffic.
So, my whole point on that whole story was that the selectmen, in their wisdom, have not pushed this issue. This is something that needs to be done immediately. This is a safety issue, and somebody's going to get killed there.
Yeah. And I think the town manages those set of lights. The other lights in that area are managed by Mass DOT, I believe. So
Well,
the
then
town
maybe
definitely-
we should tickle Mass DOT
Yeah.
and get them to move on it, because we have a lot of areas like that
Yep.
in town. Okay, so that was just a point being made that the selectmen are not following up. Hobart Street goats. This is the story of the century. We had the selectmen approached by the resident with 900 signatures supporting her. And nothing has basically happened. They promised to have this thing on the special town meeting agenda, or maybe on the annual town meeting agenda, but nothing has happened. So John has put together a little collage of goats and pets. So if we can just show those.
Is there a difference between goats and pets?
No.
A couple of weeks ago, we had a show on how one of the couple here in Danvers were not allowed to keep their goat pets because they were declared farm animals by the town. Now, last Monday, the Boston Herald ran a sheet on goats as pets, and it's fascinating. As you can see, they showed a half a dozen parents of various towns, and this is amazing. It really shows how many goats are pets in this area. Here's a prime example. This is Watertown. Run the next one. And this is Methuen. Isn't that beautiful? Run the next one.
Hey.
And there's South Boston. Look at this one. I mean, okay, run the next one. Here's Framingham. Now all these people are having fun with goats. Run the next one. And Waltham. I mean, there's everybody's there with the goats.
What is it called? Is it goat yoga or goat?
They're just support animals.
No. Sometimes they have the goats on the backs of individuals, and that's called goat yoga or something
I have
like
no
that.
idea. But people,
Yeah, yoga pose with a goat.
people were not aware, I was not aware of how popular goats are. And also how popular other sorts of animals are.
Oh, look at that. There's
Here's
another
this
one.
one.
Getting some
This
tongue.
is Needham. Look at that. Is that the last one?
I hope so.
Yes,
Yes.
okay. Yeah, well, but I think this is a good example of all of these towns. This gives you an idea that goats are pets.
Okay. Before we go any further right now, I have to make an announcement that I forgot in the beginning. Is we do have the possibility of a call-in, and the number here is 978-777-2720. So what we'll try is see if we can get anybody to call in. If not, we'll do it next show again. But I will make that announcement sooner. I apologize. So the one thing that I wanted to present and sort of express is there's a quote in the article that I was reading. Recently, she said McGann, which is Nancy, the attorney that was representing them, was told by Land Use and Community Services Director Aaron Henry that the town manager had asked that the zoning change be held back. So there was a process that was started, and then all of a sudden the town manager steps in and says, no go, what are we going to do? There is an issue here. This was a shock to myself and my family, DuPont Reesley said. So This is another example of not following up on the commitments that we make or the town hall makes to our residents. But they don't forget to raise your taxes or raise your electric costs or your water costs. They don't forget those. So, wanted to bring that one up.
Maybe the goats will call in.
The goats are calling in?
Yeah, the goats are
Oh
calling
man, that'd be great. No.
in. Bah.
The other item that I picked up on this is the policy on proposal that was made on naming of town buildings and facilities. We even had a discussion at the Municipal Light Board this week. Where is the policy of how we name and when we name buildings for individuals, whether they're alive, dead, or
In between.
in between?
We don't have a policy,
Purgatory.
do we?
We don't, absolutely. That's exactly what came out at the Municipal Light Board meeting. The only thing we have is the Recreation Committee has put together a application for naming of buildings. That's not where that happens, not at the Recreation Committee. It happens at the Board of Selectmen.
And it should maybe even be expanded to the town meeting to actually decide.
Absolutely. So what has happened is the presentation was made at the Selectmen's meeting, and I'm beating up on the Selectmen. I don't care.
Now you got to be nice.
I have to be nice. Okay, I will be nice.
That was your
The
New Year's
Selectmen
resolution.
took it under advisement and put it in the wastebasket.
Well, let me beat up on the average citizen. If the average citizen wants something done, they've got to go to the selectmen and tell them that. The more people who go to the selectmen, the more likely the selectmen will be to pay attention to them. If you don't do anything, nothing happens.
Yep, I can vouch for that personally.
You can? Give us an example.
No, I can't.
Oh, no.
I'm
No,
not.
you can't. Yes, you
You got
can.
to play nice.
I have always played nice. The problem is that nobody's listening. And in town hall, I'll tell you one thing. Doing this presentation and doing the forum for this evening after the show, I've had such great support from the town employees and the departments that I went to. I am very grateful because they have been excellent in customer relations, and we are customers. We are customers as residents. We are customers as town meeting members. We are customers as reporters. And we are customers as long-term being involved in town activities. So that the town hall has recognized that, and I'm very happy to report that I've had no issues. The only issue I had is when we wanted to get the Toomey room so we can televise our 6:30 show tonight live because the cameras and everything is there. I was told, you have to go and see the town manager. You have to go and get approval from him. Where is the policy for that room? That is the issue that I'm concerned about, is that we make these requests and the requests go on deaf ears because they don't want you there.
Yeah, it's a public space. Just
It is a public
any other
space,
building.
and it's a room that should be available to residents, whether they're elected or non-elected. There should be a community room.
Yeah.
The Danvers Police have the
training room.
room.
Yep.
That's an excellent
we've been there,
location.
yep.
And I think what we'll try to televise from there. The DCAT right here have a 10, 12 people room that can be televised from. And also we have, the library has 3 rooms up there now. And tonight we're going to be at the standing room, which is being used for a larger gathering. And that is a beautiful room, and it's got nice sound doors that can be closed and you don't bother anybody.
Are there chairs in there?
There are chairs in there. We have arranged, and again, I want to thank Alex Lentz
Yep.
for being so cooperative.
Yeah, but Mark, we got to get the average citizen out there more involved. We have all these rooms that they can use, but they don't use them.
Well, I'll tell you, even with this forum, I don't know how many people are going to show up. There's a steady response from the ones we already know who are going to come, but trying to reach the current town meeting members is almost impossible. You leave a message, you send an email, you try to reach out to them so you can advise them that this is happening. If they want to come, they can come. If they don't, that's fine. They don't even respond to the telephone calls or messages that you leave. So I am very concerned because that's the reason why I think our show has become a catalyst for trying to get some interest going. Look at the Board of Selectmen. There's going to be a vacancy. It was not announced publicly yet, but it's been announced for the last 6 months that she's not running. Nobody is ready. Nobody's willing to stick their neck out because it is a job. It's a 20 to 30 hour a week job. So is this. But, you know, we spend the time on gathering and getting our information together. So to activate the individuals, town meeting members specifically, because those are the ones that count on February 10th regarding this whole zoning. So the other things we'll cover at the library meeting.
When is that tonight?
Tonight at 6:30.
6:30.
6:30 at the standing room. And we'll get into more details because I have studied this 196 pages from one end to the other.
And that's going to be taped.
And that's going to be taped, and what we'll try to do is edit it tomorrow and maybe get it on the air for the next 5 days.
Great.
So, next item that I want to just bring up briefly because we don't have much time left, and I'm talking too much. Economic development. We are planning all of this development in housing and into commercial, industrial storefronts and walking cities and all that. Where is the economic benefit that's going to happen to the businesses that are going to employ these people so they can walk to their jobs? There is nothing going on in regards to how to activate our commercial, industrial, storefronts, restaurants. The one comment I received at one time was, we only have 5 banks in this town.
I think there's 10 just in the square.
I believe so too. So what the heck are we doing? No, not many of those people live in town.
Yeah. So,
Because most of our town is residential. Residential one, basically single families.
on a half an acre.
No.
Quarter acre?
My lot is 11,000 square feet, and that's probably the smallest that we can have, and I think it's R3.
So that was the public policy for 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Which is perfect.
Was that?
Do you
was
want
the
to cut
type-
any more lawn than that? I don't.
Can I just say something about that economic development?
Go
Because
ahead.
today we have a lot of single-story structures on High Street that
Right.
are really not a good use of the land. The land has become so valuable that what we've seen closer to Boston is those structures are torn down and multi-story buildings are built in replacement. So if we have continue to have commercial on the first floor that this zoning initiative promotes, and then the second and third floor are residential, perhaps that first floor, the rents could be lower than they are today, and that would promote businesses to move into that corridor. Because today we have single story, the commercial use has to, pay for the overall use, the taxes, kind of return on investment and that kind of thing.
Well, the question that I have is, what stops that developer or that landowner from requesting the zoning board of appeals to let him build the other 2 stories and make it 3 stories high? Because we are permitted to do that.
Yeah, it happened with 44 Maple.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but we don't want the piecemeal development like that. We want to
So
have an overall guideline, so when you look down the street, it all makes sense.
That horse is gone out of the barn long time ago. You are not going to rebuild the downtown to the specifications that they have identified in the 196 pages.
They've done it in other towns. They've shown examples of where that's been a success for downtowns that in the past were maybe only seasonal use, and now year-round kind of attractions for.
Most of the developments that are being shown as success are based around a transportation hub, a employment hub. Cumming Center is one, and that's functioning well. Cumming Center has grown up with the last 30 years, and that used to be a warehouse. And now they've developed it. But they have transportation there. They have access to housing because they build condos all around. We don't have that capacity.
No.
We don't have any transportation hub. We don't have any employment in town except for services.
I think what you're trying to say is we need more of a public-private collaboration in terms of kind of figuring out what the needs are and
Before we start increasing the population growth, which
well, that's
is
going to
housing.
happen irregardless. You can't stop this type of development, and I see that on the Danvers Facebook page. People say no more building, more development. I mean, that's not a realistic statement or
But that's
belief.
Danvers talking back to the planning board and to you
Well,
and
that's
me.
people living in the 60s. They
Well,
want to
wait a
make
minute,
Danvers
don't-
great again.
Don't 60s were not that bad.
Oh, I know, but
60s
those
were
days
great.
are long gone.
Yeah, but that's when everything grew up.
Yeah.
And I
I mean, I'd like
appreciate-
to go back there now.
Yeah, but you can't. You're
I
too
know. Well,
young.
there you go. So that's the reality of it.
So we've learned some things. So thank you for exploring some of these issues. And we did not have any call-ins.
Next time.
978-777-2720. We'll try again next time. So stay tuned. Thank you very much, Mark Zuberek.
Matthew Duggan.
John Toomey.
We'll see you in February, the first full week.
Good night, Danvers.
Good night, Danvers.